What if the biggest reason your marketing isn't as effective as it could be is your team? Today's customer has changed, but if your team hasn't changed, or if they haven't upskilled to be in tune with those changes, your marketing probably isn't landing the way that it used to. The general market doesn't look the same way that it did 10 years ago. With big shifts in race, ethnicity, age, and varying generations, neurodiversity, disability, body size, sexual orientation, gender identity, and more. So here's the real question. Does your team actually reflect the people that you're trying to reach and convert? Are they equipped today to authentically deliver products, services, experiences, and communications that make the people that you want to serve feel like they belong with you? Because when your team is reflective of and equipped to serve your ideal customers of today, you'll be more likely to win. But building that type of team, one that is diverse and representative, culturally intelligent, and equipped to connect, it's getting harder. And in some cases, even riskier. After the US Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in college admissions, a lot of companies started rethinking how they approach hiring, recruitment, and representation. But here's what hasn't changed. The data still shows that diverse and representative teams perform better. When your team is equipped to communicate with and serve today's consumer better, you'll be more likely to convert them and keep them loyal over time. In this episode, I'm joined by business psychologist Leanne Elliott. She's sharing research-backed, actionable strategies to help you build the kind of team your brand needs now, even in the current climate we're in. Let's get into it. Tell the people, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Leanne Elliott. I'm a chartered occupational psychology with the British Psychological Society. I'm a consultant, a people and culture consultant. I help business owners find and keep great people in a nutshell. I'm also the co-host of Truth, Lies and Work, which I do with my husband Al Elliott. Idea being I bring the science, he brings the business mind, and together we try and simplify the science of work.
All right, so let's let the people in on some of your brilliance here on this episode. From an inclusive marketing standpoint, one of the things that it's important for people to do good work is to have teams that are representative of the people that they want to serve. You can do a better job of serving people, of creating marketing policies, delivering experiences, etc., that are more inclusive if you have people with the identities and the lived experiences of the people that you're trying to reach. Not to say that you can't do a good job without it, but it'll just be a lot more authentic if you do. Part of the challenge is from a marketing standpoint, marketing teams are notoriously and historically very homogenous. And this isn't necessarily just a problem of marketing teams. So from your perspective, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why do leaders in organizations struggle so much to build diverse teams?
It's a very good question and a very difficult one to answer succinctly because there are so many different aspects that will impact that from leader to leader, from business to business. The reason we say work as a science is because it's behavioral science. It's, the psychology of people in the workplace. So with that, I'm always kind of like, there's a lot of everything around diversity can be quite politically charged. And at the moment, we're seeing a lot of pushback, unnecessary pushback. So I just kind of want to take a step back and take the emotion out of it and go, diversity is good for business. Whatever your political views are, your ideologies are, diversity is good for business. Diverse people means diverse skills and experiences, and that creates a collective intelligence that is superior to a non-diverse team. All the data shows is diverse teams are more innovative, more creative, more productive, they perform better, they're faster to market. Name a commercial metric you'd measure in your business, diverse teams will be better at it. So regardless of ideology, diversity is good for business. So I think in terms of translating that into the organization, the first thing really is to kind of go, right, well, this needs to be part of our culture and our values, because it doesn't matter how many diverse people we attract into our business. If we can't keep them, if we create a really rubbish environment for women or people of color, they're not going to stay. So all the money and effort we put into these great recruitment practices isn't going to work. So it's how do we build that into the culture? And I think the key thing is finding that commonality amongst the most senior of leadership teams, the board, the C-suite. What can we agree on here? Do we fundamentally agree that diversity is good for business? Yeah. Do we fundamentally agree that talent is evenly distributed but opportunity is not. Yeah, okay, we can agree that too. Cool. So we've got two really great reasons. We've got a commercial reason and we've got a values-driven reason to actually go and make a fundamental change within our business and how it operates to not only attract more diverse people into our business, but to actually keep them as well.
So many good points. And I love how you brought that back to values, because I feel like I talk about values in culture all the time, but it really does set the foundation for everything else. And if you've got a culture that values diversity, you recognize the importance, you recognize that it actually, like you were saying, all those stats in terms of how it drives business results, then it's easy to bake it into your values and then to make other decisions that kind of support that, including your hiring policies. So one of the things that I think would be interesting for people to understand is about this whole concept of reverse discrimination. You and I had a conversation about this, I believe, on your podcast way back when. And I know this is what has people a little on edge, especially in the US, as the Supreme Court in summer 2023 rolled back affirmative action in universities. And so people are wondering, well, how does this impact what we do in the workplace? So what is reverse discrimination and how should leaders be thinking about this as they're trying to think about building a diverse team?
Yeah, so reverse discrimination, also in the UK called positive discrimination or affirmative action, basically means that you can make a hiring decision, an acceptance decision, all things being equal on the basis of a diversity characteristic, whether that be gender, sexual orientation, whatever that is. You can make that decision purely based on that factor, all other things being equal. That has been illegal in the UK since 2010 under the Equality Act, and that's just come into the states last year in terms of university admissions. The thing is about legal or not, right? And again, lots of politics wrapped up in affirmative action, lots of emotions. Again, I like to take it back to the research and the data. What do we know about it? We've got data on this being in place for a number of years. What do we know? One thing that we know from the research is that it's a double-edged sword, really. So in terms of the impact of affirmative action, the question is, did it actually serve the people it was designed to serve? And the answer is not really. So a meta-analysis of 45 studies, that's when we get the data from 45 different studies, look at it with one question in mind. Where organizations have had affirmative action in place, the members of the disadvantaged groups brought in struggled more with tasks and had poorer performance reviews. So the presence of the policy alone had an impact on capability and performance. So when the researchers looked at this a bit more, what they found was that really it's just the presence of the policy was enough of a factor for people in the organization perceiving that person brought in through affirmative action, do they really deserve to be here? And then as the individual, I'm thinking, is that the only reason I'm here? Am I qualified to be here? And this effect was even found in organizations where women and racial minorities were highly qualified. They still performed more poorly. So in terms of the intention of affirmative action is really good. And I think it's one of those things that it holds organizations to account in terms of diversity and in terms of reducing and eliminating discrimination. But in terms of in its current form, the impact on the minority groups perhaps isn't as positive as we'd hope it would be.
Oh, this is fascinating. And I love that you've brought like these research and the data, because I mean, we hear this all the time, like diversity hire, they have that negative stigma. And we're seeing, like you said, in the data, how it impacts people, not because they aren't qualified or can't do the work. It's just, there's a lot of other stuff wrapped up into it. Okay. So given all of that, is it ever okay to say, I need a bilingual employee? I need to hire a Black team member because we are going to be serving the Black community. We're targeting women, so I need grossly underrepresented with women on our team. So we would like to have more women. The reason why I bring this up is because more and more, like we're seeing job descriptions for people who are bilingual, particularly here in the US. I live in Florida, so there's a lot of businesses that need Spanish speakers. But I also remember when I worked my corporate job, there was a while where one of the places where I worked, we made insulin pumps for people with diabetes. And I remember we hired on the marketing team and throughout the organization, a lot of people
who had diabetes and who used the product, right? And their insights really helped us to better understand the people that we're serving. I don't actually know what was in the job description, but like somehow we were able to have a representative amount of those people. So in what context is it okay to say we need more people of this identity on our team?
Simplest answer, saying we need more people of this identity on our team specifically, is shaky ground. What we can look at, and through a process called job analysis, is the skills and experience, or the knowledge, skills, and experience that we need that job to function, how that functions within our organization, what we need the job to do, and what knowledge, skills, and experience are going to be able to do it. So using your examples, for example, it could be that, yes, having a knowledge of living with diabetes is advantageous because we've proven to market this product effectively. We need to have that awareness of the health condition. That doesn't necessarily mean that the candidate has to have diabetes. They could have studied diabetes for a long time. They could have a family member who's diabetic. It's having the knowledge, not necessarily where that knowledge has been acquired from. So if we look at it like that and actually look at the job analysis first, what do we need the job to do to function? Then kind of attach that to what type of knowledge, skills, and experience is going to probably predict good performance for this job. Then we can start to recruit for that. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's always thinking, do I actually need somebody? I mean, bilingual is a fairly straightforward example, actually. If you need somebody who speaks English and Spanish, and you can prove that that's a requirement for the job, not just a nice to have. It's a requirement for the job. There will be tasks that will require you to use Spanish. Then absolutely. What you can't do is say we want a native English speaker. You can say we need a high level of English, but you can't discriminate based on identity characteristics.
Let's say you have a product and you want to make sure that you are marketing and including people who are Asian, right? And from people who are part of that community. You can say it's preferable to have people who have a lot of knowledge of this culture. And so the knowledge of the culture, the knowledge of the experiences and insight there could be beneficial. And that is not the same as saying we need someone who is of Asian descent to be on our team. We just need somebody who has this level of expertise and experience with this particular community. Is that kind of like the nuance there?
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's you're going to need to prove that you need that pre-existing knowledge rather than somebody who shows an aptitude for learning about different cultures or different things very quickly. There's going to be more nuances again, but simply speaking, yes. We can ask for the experience and the skill. We can't ask for the identifying demographic.
I like that, but I like that it gives some guidance in terms of ways to make sure that you have the skills on your team, and identity is one way for people to acquire those skills, but it's not the only way, right? So you're not naturally excluding people. How can marketing and business leaders address over representation on their teams of certain identities? So they've already got their team in place, right? But then they look up and we're like, oh, wow, like we are over indexed here. I think a lot of times we see this, we over index of people from these 3 universities because that's where, say, the organization recruits. And the majority of the people from these universities have similar backgrounds, identities, etc. So how should we think about like, this is the team we have, but we are overrepresented here. How do we change that up?
Yeah, and I think, that's a really positive thing to do, is always kind of have that sense check of the diversity levels currently within your workforce, particularly in relationship to the community of customers that you serve. It makes total sense, makes total commercial sense, and it makes ethical sense too. Honestly, Sonia, I think we probably need to fundamentally rethink everything we think we know about recruitment. All the kind of tried and tested methods we have, they're not as effective as we think they are. And the problem is that a lot of recruitment processes are just inherently biased. They have so much bias within them, end to end, how they recruit, where they recruit from, how they assess candidates. It's almost impossible to not be biased in the recruitment decisions that you make. So I think the first thing really is to really think about, do I want to recruit somebody on past success that I can look through all the really nice things that they've done? Or do I want to look potential? And if I want to look at potential, how do I assess that potential? And there's various different ways that we can do that, but coming to education first is, as you said, there's lots of people who will, make an assumption that the best colleges admit the best people and therefore they'll make the best candidates. Data doesn't actually show this to be the case. So there's been a study with 28,000 students, so a massive sample. Those that attended higher ranking universities only performed slightly better, barely significant, than their peers on consulting projects that went to lower ranked universities. More so than that, if we look at the quality of work contributions in terms of collaborations, then 1.9% better from high-ranking universities like Yale compared to other universities like Cleveland. So it's a teeny tiny, not significant percentage. So actually, as a tactic, not even very effective, let alone, very good for diversity.
Oh, I love it. I love that you bring the data to back everything up that you're saying, because it really is helpful. And I think, like you said, we need to rethink as we're thinking about how to be more inclusive, whether it's throughout your organization, throughout your recruiting process, or in your marketing. I think that people take the approach of what tweaks do we need to make to what we're already doing? What addition do we need to make? And, suddenly everything will be fixed. In most instances, I think that we need to not do that. And really, as you said, rethink the entire thing, which might mean we got to start over from scratch and ask some fundamental questions, because we can't assume that the current way that we're doing it is the way that will give us the best results whenever we think about it more broadly from an inclusion lens and what it is that we're trying to accomplish as an organization. So I really do appreciate that mindset shift.
Absolutely. And there's so many of the data points. It's almost laughable that we don't know about this as business owners and leaders, and know that we're making really expensive hiring decisions on incorrect assumptions. We look at the data around prior experience, because that's usually a nice one as well. If you've got experience doing that job before, that's the experience I'm looking forward to put into the job I'm recruiting. Well, there was another study, lots of industries, lots of different jobs. Prior work experience had zero impact on performance. Zero. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The only aspect in terms of prior work experience that did have an impact was evidence of prior work performance. So showing that you excelled in that job. That was a slightly better metric. Again, this was looked at with lots of participants, but again, this had its limitations, and then also led to more incorrect decisions. So yes, if you have performed well in a job before and you can objectively prove that, yes, the chances are you're going to perform well in that job again. But that's not to say that if you're doing a job, then the skills you have in that job are going to also work for the job that's the promotion above you. And the managerial positions are a perfect example of this. So again, because I love my data, Sonia. One of the biggest samples ever done looking into this, looking at the biggest billers, were more than often promoted into management positions, and more often than not would fail in those management positions because managerial skills are very different to sales skills. What they actually found that the salespeople who were more pro-social members of the team excelled more in leadership roles, alongside the number of collaborative sales they'd made with their peers. And that's where I'm sure you've heard that the Peter Principle is famously stemmed from. You get promoted to your level of incompetence.
I just feel like I could just listen to all these stats, and I want to learn more and more and more about everything that all these data points that you've looked at, because I think that it just continues to show that, well, one, as you started the show chatting, and you mentioned it's all about the science of work. And I don't feel like much science goes into the way in which people go about making decisions. An example that you use, even with hiring the salespeople into these leadership positions, I remember seeing that happen in a lot of instances. And as team members, we had the same thoughts, but we're not the ones making decisions about what is most valuable from a skill set versus what isn't. So another question for you around recruitment practices. What recommendations do you have on some non-biased recruitment strategies that people should start to embrace as they're working to diversify their teams?
It starts with the job advert, and there's some little tweaks. I think I'm going to completely not change everything I've just said, because I think it does fundamentally need a complete transformation how we recruit people. That said, there are little things you can do now that are still going to make a difference. And job adverts, job descriptions is one of them. First thing is, and it's the simplest thing to do, is you've got your criteria, right? Your essential and your desirable criteria. At the bottom of that, just put on 2 lines that says applicants who meet 60% of the criteria above are welcome to apply. Because what that's going to do is increase the number of applicants you get from women and people of colour who generally underestimate their level of experience and competence in compared to other groups, such as white males that tend to be a bit more confident in their view of their skills and experience. So doing that, we've seen through the testing, usually increases between 25 and 30% the number of applications you'll get from women and people of colour, just by putting that on your job advert.
Wow.
Something else you can do is around flexible working. If you had flexible working policies that lean into people who have requirements around caring, whether it be parental or for members of family, anything else, making that clear on the job advert increases applications from people who have caring responsibilities, again, typically women. Making it clear your diversity policy, and you'll make reasonable adjustments to the recruitment process and the working environment for people with a disability. That will increase the number of applicants you get from people with a disability. It's little things like that that are just going to, even just in your job ad, are going to start to diversify the pipeline of applicants that you're getting coming in. Then, of course, it's going to be lots of advertising, and you'll be able to speak much better to that in terms of where to advertise jobs for more a diverse audience. Once you get those people in, it's about thinking, well, how do we assess the candidates we're getting in terms of doing our best to kind of assess in terms of, rather than like for like, in a way that is a bit fairer to the challenges people have been to. Adam Grant put it really beautifully. He said something like, as recruiters, we're really good at assessing execution. We never assess for level of difficulty. So me getting to university as a white woman, middle class family, I didn't have the same challenges of somebody else who was from a lower socioeconomic background, who had more challenges, maybe had to contribute towards bills and rent, who maybe had caring responsibilities, a whole myriad of other challenges that they could have experienced. If you look at our A-level results and we get the same, or our exam results, you call it your GPA, if they're the same and that's all you're seeing, then it's an apple and it's an apple. But if there's a way that you can look into those clues, those ideas of actually the extra challenges that person, the level of difficulty that person has gone through to get the same outcome, that shows much more about the caliber of applicant that you've got coming in. So that's going to be things like, the city that they live in, the school that they went to. There's other things we can look at to try and better understand the challenges that person has gone through, because that's going to measure potential rather than success, and it's very contextual. So situational hiring can be a useful thing to do. And after that is looking at recruitment, selection and assessment methods that are predictive of work performance. This is the science. There's more than 100 years of research that shows us that certain activities are better at predicting future job performance than others. So for example, culture fit, we talk about that quite a lot, useless. The highest one is general mental ability, which is IQ. That tends to be the biggest predictor. Structured interviews are pretty high. Once upon a time, we've even got data on handwriting analysis that used to be used to recruit people. That surprisingly wasn't very effective either. Or another one that's really effective is work sample tests, which are really great because, again, this is about assessing potential rather than necessarily experience. So it's asking things like, to actually do a part of the job, a function of the job. People could send in a portfolio of work they've done before. They could do role plays with grumpy customers and see how you respond. There's a famous one in Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen. That's a work sample test. And particularly if that's thought out, it's discussed in terms of the behavioral indicators you're looking for. So how good people are at diffusing conflict, how good they are at influencing, how good they are at arguing an alternative point of view. You know what you're looking for because you know that's what's needed for the job. Then you can actually score candidates from widely different backgrounds and levels of and types of experience purely based on the task in hand. And that's going to help to remove bias from the process and actually recruit people with the skills that you need to perform. And my last word on using different methods in the selection process is around psychometrics. If you're not working with a psychologist, then don't do psychometrics. It's not what you think. There are so many out there that are so popular that have no science behind them at all. Like none.
Yeah.
None at all. Disc, really popular one with the colors, that was designed by the dude who wrote the Wonder Woman comics. There's no real basis.
Okay.
And even when you get a really, really great personality psychometric, like Hogan, for example, Hogan are excellent in terms of test publishing, great reliability, great validity, lots and lots of data that shows. Even then, it's one of the poorest types of predictive job performance, about 10%. Compare that to interviews, we're talking about 35, 40%, general mental ability about 60%.
Yeah.
So it's not even that useful, and the amount of bias that can come through them, not only in terms of how the tests are designed and how they're scored, but if there's no science behind them anyway, you might as well just ask people what their star sign is.
My jaw is like dropped, right? Like just hearing these things, because I know so many people use these assessments. Like an alarm went off in my head whenever you talked about this whole culture fit and it not being effective. And I think a lot of times people use culture fit as a way to decide, will this person work or do they not? And I have a feeling that that can negatively impact a team's ability to build a diverse team, because someone with a different background or identity, if they don't try to assimilate, might not fit so well with an existing culture with identities of people who have different backgrounds, lived experiences, etc. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be able to do the job and sort of transform. So if I'm understanding this correctly, culture fit is like, are you people like me? And is that sort of like reinforcing this whole homogenous teams aspect of it? Like whenever we're looking for people like me in this regard?
Absolutely. Similarity bias is what it's called in the literature.
Okay.
And it's very, very real and very prevalent in recruitment, in culture.
Okay.
But fundamental problem comes in terms of recruiting for culture fit. Is the average leader's, business owner's understanding of culture is probably going to be in terms of similarity. You believe what I believe. You want the world to operate in the same way I want the world to operate. And the reality is that's not what culture is. Culture is multifaceted and complex and behavior based. And unless you have a really clear understanding of what your culture actually is, then trying to recruit into that is kind of pointless. There's a difference though in terms of, I think, if you're looking at values, we can hold the same value. We can, have that in common whilst having a very different background, a very different political view, very different ideologies about the world, if that core value is the same. So for example, a core value might be creating excellence every day in your work. Like we work to be excellent. And what does it mean to be excellent? It's not just stating, what does it mean? Well, it means we're collaborative. It means that we learn from our mistakes. It means that we encourage people to make mistakes and then we dissect them and see what the lessons we take forward are. It's giving opportunities to people earlier in their career for their learning and development. Excellence is all of these things and all these behaviors, and that's what creates this value. We can share that value and be on very different sides of the political spectrum. And that's where diversity of thought is really powerful, because we're bringing together a collective intelligence rather than groupthink, where we all think the same. And that sucks out innovation and creativity. And sadly, that's probably.
I think a big part of why people are looking for this people like me, or it's similarity bias, is that whatever you said? Mm-hmm. It's because engaging and interacting with people who were very different, or who think differently than you, or see the world differently than you, brings a degree of conflict that people probably don't want to deal with. And not all conflict has to be bad. It's just a matter of, it might challenge your way of thinking, and maybe people don't want to do the hard work of having to confront whether or not the way they think or view the world or consider things isn't the only way to do things, right? So
it does seem to be a real climate we're in at the moment. And, the UK's seen it as well, very, divisive politics over the last few years. And the challenge is when we then get stuck in this mindset of, you're never going to change my mind, therefore I don't want to hear what you have to say. I can still listen to what you have to say and be open to what you're saying, because actually, if you have a fair argument for something or a fair reason, maybe I should adjust my viewpoint somehow, some way, or even be civil enough to consider it. And what all the research shows is that we don't have to be best mates with our colleagues. We don't have to have these amazing kumbaya type relationships to thrive. The data shows us we just need to be civil, and civility means mutual respect. It means listening to each other. It means not putting each other down. It means not humiliating anyone. It means no blame. They're the things that we can work into our culture that are going to be really productive for performance and for ourselves in terms of our own development and our own view of the world, and the creativity and innovation we're going to bring to the business and to our work as well. We're in this locked state at the minute where it's very us and them, and the only way out of it is going to be for us all to start opening ourselves up to other opinions, no matter how difficult that might be. I know it's really difficult, but as I heard this phrase recently, and I thought this is going to be my mantra for the next couple of years, I think. Strong opinions, loosely held. Show me the data points, tell me the ideas, let me learn. You're probably not going to change my view of the world entirely, but you might just give little tweaks of little data points I didn't have. I'd made incorrect assumptions, like we've just heard. There's so many incorrect assumptions that we hold. So yeah, a bit of openness. And that comes again from top down, from leadership. And that's behavior-based values within a culture. And that's what culture actually is.
Strong opinions, loosely held. I love it. It's definitely mantra worthy. Definitely. Because I think we could make a lot of positive change if we adopted that approach. With regards to job descriptions, I know a lot of times that people use a marker of like 5 years experience, 2 years experience, 10 years experience. Is that something that is helpful or useful in attracting a diverse team? Not for the sake of we're trying to lower the bar to bring people in who are less qualified, these diversity hires, but does that serve us well, just having that number?
The tricky thing is, again, it's going back to your job analysis. Can I prove with some kind of evidence that this quantifiable number of years experience is required for the job? Or could it be that knowledge has been acquired quicker or in a different way or in a more immersive way? There's lots of different ways to think about that level of experience. Also, what we know, number of years experience isn't predictive of job performance in any way, because you could ask for somebody with 5 years experience and they've repeated the same year 5 times, or you could get somebody who's got a diversity experience in digital marketing, who's done lots of different things in those 5 years. So even that is fairly vague. The only thing I'd say that could be interesting for that is more, I mean, it is ageist as well, so we need to be careful from a discrimination perspective. I think the thing that is interesting, and maybe flipping it, because we tend to focus on the younger people joining our workforce, is also the older people in our workforce. There's a really cool term from Chip Conley. He does amazing work around modern elders, and how kind of like culturally, societally, we used to have so much respect for our elders in terms of their lessons and their wisdom, and that's completely been lost over the kind of the past 50 years or so in certain cultures, of course. He's called it now wisdom work. So people who have many years more experience, and it's not to say that they have the experience and know exactly what to do. What they've learned over time is how to identify patterns when things go wrong, or those early warning signs that things are starting to derail. And that's that somebody with 25, 30 years experience might be able to do better than somebody with 2 years experience. It's an interesting way as well. And again, you know, when you put these teams together, these different age groups together, and we're going to have 5 generations, you know, in the workplace very, very soon. It's an exciting time. And another reason I think for us to think about more in terms of diversity rather than the same us and them narratives that seem to be happening with Gen Z and boomers in the minute.
Leanne, this has been so insightful, so much fun. I am just soaking all up from this conversation. I know people are going to want to know more about you and listen more to you and learn from you. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and your work?
LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I'm on there pretty frequently. Truth, Lies and Work is the podcast, and we always leave loads of contacts in the show notes, including an email address and actually a link to book a call with us should you want to do that. So yeah, check out Truth, Lies and Work, go to the show notes and you'll find all the contact details.
Okay, 2 quick questions for you. Can you tell me about a time when a brand made you feel like you belonged?
I went through quite a journey over my lockdown activity with skincare. That was kind of my YouTube hole. I fell down in my self-care activity that I really embraced. And during that time, I found lots of different brands that would speak in different ways. And I think it was CosRx that I stumbled across. And it talked about the science of skincare. And it talked about the different ingredients. And it talked about how it can work on more mature skin. And it was marketed in terms of data rather than in terms of a 20-year-old fresh-faced, no skin texture or slight wrinkles as a nearly 40-year-old woman that I am. So yeah, that was probably one that made me kind of connected with my love for data, and also made me feel as an older woman included more in the beauty industry.
Very cool. And I think too many brands don't do a good job of marketing to people or including people over 50 and even women 40 and over. So yeah, I think that's a great example. And brands just need to do better on that. So any parting words of wisdom for marketers and business leaders who want to be intentional about building a diverse team that is representative of the people that they serve?
This is science. Get curious. Read some studies around it. I mean, 2 books that I'd recommend as great starting points. Adam Grant, Hidden Potential, is really good. Catherine Garrett, Conscious Inclusion, also really great practical tips. This is science. And of all the areas of what I do as an occupational psychologist, recruitment is the most data-driven. It's 100 years of research. It's applied time and time again. There is so much data on it. It's one of those things that it's going to take a lot of investment and intention up front. But once you've kind of put the foundations in place, it's kind of just going to flow, because they'll be tweaking and they'll be making sure we're up to date with the latest policies and regulations and demographics of the world and what's happening. But once you've got those foundations in place in terms of fundamentally what we believe as a business when it comes to diversity, what will, the behaviors we'll accept within our organization as a business when it comes to diversity, and the processes and systems we'll put in place to encourage bringing diversity into our business, then the rest of it is largely maintenance. So yeah, I think get curious, follow the science.
And I imagine if people were like, man, I don't have time to read all this stuff, hire an expert like Leanne.
Yeah, and that is exactly what we're here to do, is to work with clients to do that. And in a way that works for them, with the budget that works for them. We tend to work more with smaller owner-led businesses where this is all new. It's as much of an education point along the way. But yeah, thank you so much, Sonia. This has been really, really great conversation.
Thank you, Leanne. This has been a joy, a true treat.
All right, so if you want to get started upskilling the team that you have now, this video on cultural intelligence will help you get going. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves to have a place where they belong. Let's use our individual and collective power to ensure more people feel like they do. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon.